Hey folks, Schneider here. People have been asking questions about, yes, about the General Lee and about what's right and what's wrong with the General Lee, favorite episodes and all kinds of things. But a question that keeps coming up that I need to address because there's so much misinformation out there is the accident that we had on Dukes. There are many stories out there about a stunt that was going on, about a very dangerous stunt, which is not true. It was not a very dangerous stunt. Let me explain to you what happened. It was a tragic day for everyone. It's the day that we lost our camera operator, Rodney Mitchell, and you never ever want to have any accident happen, but you certainly don't ever want to lose a life. This was June 18th, 1980. And let me explain the nature of second unit to you for a moment. People would show up to work and they would park at base camp. Let's use a book. I'm going to use I have this book here, right? So they would park at, say, base camp here. Then there would be a jump set up. We'd be set up over here doing something which might be half a mile away. We would work basically in a circle all around base camp. So we wouldn't keep coming back to base camp all the time because efficiency was important as far as time goes. So it was, sounds like such a meaningless word, but it was in your day-to-day work on Dukes, on the day-to-day second unit work on Dukes, everyone would travel together, do the stunt, travel to the next spot, do the stunt, travel to the next spot, and do the stunt. Now, in those days, we did have a van. There was a van there, and of course, there was a General Lee. There was the cop cars. There were whatever vehicles were being used to do the stunts. But usually, only the stunt man or woman was in the picture vehicles, the stunt cars that we're going to be jumping or rolling over or putting in the water. So that's one person per car. Then we had a van, which was maybe a 15-passenger van that would be with us as well. Then we have all the gear. So invariably, and then we have the camera car, the insert car, which I'm not sure why they call it a car because it was a truck, but a pickup truck. Three-quarter ton, probably pickup truck. Here's a picture of what some of them look like now. Everyone would travel in either the car they were going to wreck, or the van, or on the insert car. So as you can see on an insert car, there's a lot of places for gear. There's a lot of places for people to congregate, to have meetings, to go over script notes, to go over shots. So it should be used as a table and as a meeting place. But invariably, what used to happen with a camera car is people would get on it, we'd do the shot, and then stop, and then set up the next shot. So get on the camera car, do the shot, stop, set up the next shot, do that shot, stop, set up the next shot, maybe do a jump, stop, and so on and so forth, and then come back to base camp for lunch. Go out, repeat the process. Work in a circle, come back to your car, go home, come back the next day, do the same thing. Okay. So the nature of that is that there were lots of people on the insert car. Now, the day of the accident, Tom and I were not out there. We were, I don't know that any cast members were out there. We were back at Warner Brothers, or Burbank Studios, it was called at that point. And they were doing a shot, simple shot. My recollection was that it was a Monday. Now, I'd have to go back and look, but it was a Monday, and we had had rain over the weekend. So if you can imagine, these roads, we had an upper road and a lower road, all those roads you see in Dukes of Hazzard during our tenure at Lake Sherwood, they were run over and over and over and over. And Paul Baxley would bring in great big pieces of oak and trees and things and put them in front of the camera to make it a prettier shot, but also to make it not look like the shot you had just seen. So we had a forklift tractor D9. It wasn't a D9, but we had a big piece of equipment out there moving stuff around, so that it gave the illusion that this was a different place every time. So the shot they were doing was two cars. Well, here, take a look. This is a shot from Dukes. This is not the shot, I don't believe. This is the General Lee and a Jaguar going down the road. So what happens when you do that, you've got a car in front, and then you've got this. You occasionally see the car behind it that's trying to get by, and then the car will come up vroom, like that. They'll bang together a little bit, and then maybe this one will drop back, or maybe this one will drop back. Okay? But that's what you get. It's important to know that, because in that scenario, let's call my phone the camera truck. This is the camera truck. Many times on a camera truck, when you see a motorhome going down the street and it's towing a car, there'll be a tow hitch. It's fairly elaborate on a camera truck because there's a lot going on there. But it's a tow hitch. So sometimes the front car will be attached. You've seen a lot of pictures of the General Lee with lights on it. We were attached to the camera car back in the Georgia days. I'm usually wearing my brown corduroy jacket. But in this particular shot, there was no attachment, which was a very good thing. Okay? So the cars behind the camera truck were vying for position, like I showed you. And they were going, I think 25. They weren't going fast. Because I've heard people say that it was a reckless thing. This was not a reckless thing, okay? They were on a dirt road that was rutted from months of driving on it, all those great things you see. But also, it was a dirt road that was rutted, that had been rained on all weekend, okay? This was what they call a perfect storm, okay? So when the camera car came around they were going, well, it doesn't matter. Came around a not overly sharp, but a corner out at Lake Sherwood. What happened is it got caught in a rut that was slippery, and that was deeper because of all the water that had been going over it. When it does finally rain in California, it rains like crazy. It's flash flood time. So, came around a corner. My understanding is the front wheel got caught. If you've ever driven a heavy vehicle, and camera cars are very heavy, if you've ever driven a motorhome, and you just happen to slip a wheel off the shoulder, you slip your front wheel off that shoulder, it's a pretty severe thing, even if it's a very minor thing on the ground. So this was an instance where the camera car came around the corner, hit a little bit of a rut, and then adjusted. So when it adjusted, there were crew members on it. There were crew members on the camera truck. There was gear on the camera truck. There was a camera on the camera truck, which actually is low on the back bed of the camera truck. And the sad part is that all those people had been on that camera truck 1,000 times. Nothing ever happened. Doing that very same thing and sometimes doing it with a car attached. Nothing ever happened. This day, with the rain, with the rut, with the mud, with the tire catching that one little thing, it could have been a rock. Could have been a rock the size of this microphone. And there was the weight of the people on top. So when that started to go, there was nothing that possibly could have been done to keep it from going. So now you have a camera truck going 25 miles an hour, tipping. I'll show you this. Starting to tip, that's top heavy because there are people up there. And it started to go. Once it started to go, there was nothing anybody could have done about it. Rodney Mitchell was down on the bottom deck filming. So Rodney was looking through the camera, doing exactly what Rodney loved to do. And I don't think Rodney had any concept of what was happening while it was happening, because this was a stellar camera operator. A lot of those amazing shots you see in Dukes are because Rodney. We had some great, great guys and great, great girls. And I'm sure that he had his eye on that eyepiece on that Panavision until the truck was almost already all the way over. So it wasn't anyone's fault. It wasn't a huge stunt. It wasn't carelessness. It was not driver error. Our camera operator, our camera truck driver was the best in the world. You've heard me tell the story about in Dukes early on, wet road. Something happened, the General Lee started going side by side. The rear tires were going into the ditches, keep it between the ditches. They were going into the ditches on a wet Georgia clay road. And the same operator, same driver that was driving on that tragic day was driving that day. And there were people on the camera truck. And everybody felt perfectly safe because we knew we were in the best, not just good hands, we were in the best hands. So accidents happen, and it hurts me when I hear people talk about carelessness. Were there too many people on the camera truck? Yes, but nobody put them there. When I rode on that camera truck for 1,000 miles, and I like to be on the very top of it because I could see things from up there. And I could watch and I could learn how you put lights and what camera operators do. And I was up there so many times. No one was ever up there again, I guarantee you that. People do not sit up there anymore. So if there's any good thing that came out of the worst possible thing that ever happened on the Dukes of Hazzard, it's that people don't sit up there anymore. And other people were hurt that day. It was bad. Our medic was on the I believe he was on the insert car, and big dude, and he pulled himself up off the ground, and he was right there doing everything he could for Rodney. But it wasn't enough. So to Rodney Mitchell's family, and I've spoken to them. It's been too long since I've spoken to them. And I'm sure it's still tough around Christmas time, even though this was 1980. All of us are so very sorry. And Rodney came in to fill in for somebody that day. Yep. So that's what happened. No daredevil stunt, no operator error, no oversight. It was just one of those horrible, horrible things that happened that nobody saw coming and no one will ever forget.